The morning light filtered through the high windows of Forrester Creations' design atelier, illuminating the racks of silken dresses and the polished tables strewn with sketches, mood boards, and spools of thread. Ridge Forrester had arrived early, as was his habit, to review the new runway collection that was to define the coming season and reaffirm the family's hard-won dominance in the world of haute couture. Beside him, Steffi leaned over a watercolor rendering, her brow furrowed in concentration, while Eric Forrester, patriarch and living legend, sat poised behind his mahogany desk, savoring a quiet cup of espresso and the rare moment of calm that came before the storm of catwalk shows, photo shoots, and boardroom battles. But before anyone could trace the next line on a sketch or utter a single critique, the first warning came. A faint, acrid smell, like burning rubber, wafting through the ventilation grills. Ridge paused, inhaling sharply. "Did anyone else catch that?" he asked, voice low. Steffi set down her brush, eyes narrowing. "Maybe someone's testing a steam press," she suggested, though even as she spoke, her heart hammered with doubt. Eric set his cup aside. "Probably nothing," he murmured, but his veteran instincts bristled. Within seconds, the hush shattered with the blare of alarms. Red lights pulsed in the lofty space as the PA announced a code red in the production wing below. Design assistants shrieked and scurried, clutching laptops. Machinists abandoned state-of-the-art sewing machines, their thread spools rolling across the terrazzo floor. Models in progress of fittings froze mid-pose, their expressions a mixture of dread and confusion. From the mezzanine catwalk where fabric bolts were stored, a wall of flame leapt skyward, black smoke choking the air. Ridge's jaw clenched. "Fire in the main workshop," he barked, springing into action. He grabbed Steffi's hand and led her toward the stairs, ignoring the facility's executive elevators that lurched shut under emergency protocols. Eric, with surprising agility for a man of his years, rose unsteadily, dislodging his coffee cup, which shattered into a crater of steaming brown liquid as he followed them. Downstairs, chaos reigned. The scent of burning polyester and fiberglass filled every nostril. Alarms reverberated off steel beams like war drums, sprinklers clattered overhead, spraying diluted foam and water in jagged arcs. Designers kicked at fallen planks of wood to clear a path, security guards yelled orders, their radios crackling with static. Yet as the Forresters emerged onto the workshop floor, Ridge shirt-sleeved and determined, Steffi trailing with tears glinting in her eyes, Eric clutching the banister, they saw something that froze them more than any inferno. A seam of flame that licked along the base of a fuse box, as though someone had ignited the blaze with chilling precision. It wasn't an accident. Ridge's face drained of color. "This was set," he said in a whisper so fierce it cut through the panic. "Someone wanted this to burn." Within minutes, the LA Fire Department's engines arrived, their sirens pitching the morning sky into a frenzy. Firefighters, helmets cranked down, axes slung across broad shoulders, streamed from hoses and trucks, chasing back curtains of smoke with fierce water jets. Yet even as they fought the flames, questions surged through the Forresters' minds like molten lava. Who would dare to sabotage Forrester Creations? Who harbored such hatred or envy that they would target the heart of the family's legacy? Bill Spencer? His long-standing rival and the father of Liam, whose own life had been shattered by tragedy. Or Sheila Carter, exiled from the Forrester orbit yet ever scheming in the shadows? Or a darker force entirely, a hidden enemy eager to exploit any weakness? Inside the smoke-filled atelier, Ridge and Eric confronted each other, faces smeared with ash, but eyes ablaze with resolve. The fire's roar buffeted the walls, tending toward the stockpile of finished gowns, a collection worth millions, and as each gown succumbed to flame, Ridge felt as though he were watching his own flesh burn. "We've lost everything," he whispered, voice thick with grief. Steffi pressed against his side, her designer's hands trembling. "We can rebuild," she said, though her words sounded brittle even to her own ears. Eric, leaning on his cane, surveyed the devastation with a gaze heavy with decades of triumphs and trials. "This isn't just about stitches and patterns," he said. "It's about sending a message." Meanwhile, behind the scenes, security footage was already being requisitioned, the Foresters' legal team and private investigators racing to comb through hours of surveillance video. Each frame was a treasure map, a silhouetted figure exiting a side door moments before smoke curled through the vents, license plate numbers caught by a grainy camera scanning the alley outside, a shadow moving with too deliberate stealth near a circuit breaker panel. By noon, whispers had crystallized into accusations. Someone within the Forrester circle had colluded with outside forces, providing timing, access, and perhaps even explosives, chemical accelerants that turned a simple spark into an inferno. As the news spread through media outlets, the firestorm of speculation swirled faster than any wildfire, threatening not only the family's fortune and reputation, but every relationship that had held them together. In his private study at the top of Forrester Tower, Eric assembled Ridge, Steffi, Katie Logan, and Brooke Logan, whose hair and wardrobe had been hastily changed after one of the assistants fetched them from a charity luncheon. Brooke's eyes were rimmed with tears, Katie's jaw was set, and both of them looked to Eric for leadership. "We cannot let fear define us," Eric began, voice trembling with equal parts anger and determination. "We will rebuild the workshop, recover these designs, and we will not rest until the person who did this answers for it." Ridge stepped forward, voice low but fierce. "We need to know every detail. Who had keys to the back entrance? Who had proximity to the fuse box? Every employee, every freelancer, every delivery driver. We follow every thread until we find the one responsible." Katie's phone buzzed. An alert that the first rumor had gone viral, accusing the Forresters themselves of fraudulent insurance claims. Brooke's eyes blazed. "They'll say anything," she hissed. "But we'll fight back." As dusk settled over the charred bones of the atelier, the Forresters regrouped around the conference table, its surface pitted with ash. Their unity, once forged in gentler days of collaborative couture, had hardened into steel. Ridge insisted on a daily briefing, Steffi organized a design sprint to salvage usable fabrics, Brooke marshaled PR teams to manage the narrative, and Katie coordinated with insurance adjusters to fast-track recovery funds. Yet beneath the frantic activity, a single, shared question pulsed: who stood behind this act of arson? The investigation led inexorably toward whispers of a shadowy cabal with ties to rival fashion houses, a cabal rumored to traffic in corporate espionage and violence. Rumor held that a mysterious investor, known only by the codename Black Silk, had commissioned the sabotage, offering hundreds of thousands of dollars to see the Forrester name fall. Every lead, from backstage whispers at international fashion weeks to encrypted messages on darknet forums, pointed to a deep conspiracy that extended far beyond Port Charles's borders. But the Forresters were no strangers to high-stakes or hidden foes. They had weathered betrayals by spouses and thefts by supposed friends. They had survived bankruptcies, heartbreaks, and court trials. Now they faced their greatest test, a blaze of vengeance blackening their dreams. And yet, as flames raised their collection, they discovered a flame within themselves, an unquenchable resolve that refused to be extinguished. Late that night, as the city's lights glimmered against the scorched remains of the atelier, Ridge stood alone amid the ruin, steel-toed boots crunching on melted plastic mannequins. He lifted a scorched swatch of lace, the intricate pattern half preserved, and pressed it to his chest. "We will rise," he vowed to the empty air, voice echoing in the hollow extremity of loss. "And when we do, they will know the true meaning of Forrester." So the stage was set for the next act. The investigation would deepen, alliances would shift, and the Forresters would wage a battle on two fronts, one to reclaim their business, the other to unmask the saboteurs lurking in the shadows. The fire had consumed their workshop, but it had also ignited a fiercer creative force, a unity born of adversity, and an uncompromising determination to prevail. In the days to come, boardrooms would tremble, penthouses would quake, and runway lights would blaze brighter than ever. Each collection a testament not just to fabric and thread, but to the indomitable spirit of the family who refused to be defined by the ashes, but instead found in them the seed of a resplendent rebirth. And though the enemy had struck a devastating blow, in doing so they had unleashed a Forrester who would stop at nothing to reclaim the flame they tried to snuff out. The sudden, inexplicable collapse of Luna Yamada in the bustling halls of Port Charles General Hospital sent ripples of shock and devastation through every corner of the community, leaving even the most seasoned residents unmoored by the sheer brutality of her passing. One moment she had been laughing, her bright eyes alight with plans for the future, her warm hand clasped in Finn's as he whispered reassurances about her recovery from a routine procedure. And the next her body had gone limp, her breath stolen away before anyone could cry out. Word of her death spread with harrowing speed. First, a whispered rumor among the night shift nurses, then the hushed gathering of doctors in the break room, and finally the thunderous confirmation that no intervention, no desperate plea from her devoted father Finn, had succeeded in reviving her. And just as the news settled into cold fact, grief ignited in 1,000 hearts across Port Charles. Sheila Carter, whose own dark past had taught her inestimable lessons about loss and redemption, found herself crumpled on the floor of her small apartment, tears streaming unchecked as guilt and sorrow mingled in equal measure. She had fought her own battles against destiny's cruelties, but Luna's beauty and hopefulness had unexpectedly pierced the hardened shell she had built around her heart, awakening something maternal that she never knew existed. Now that light was extinguished, and Sheila's sobs echoed in empty rooms as she cursed fate for granting her a second chance at life only to snatch Luna away. At Deacon Sharp's doorstep, the news struck like a physical blow. Deacon, Luna's steadfast friend, protector, and sometimes unlikely ally to Sheila in their shared quest for healing, found himself staring at the phone in disbelief. His hands, so often sure as they gripped a steering wheel or steadied a terrified patient, trembled as he booked the earliest flight back to Port Charles. In the airport lounge, strangers offered silent condolences, but their words felt hollow compared to the anguish twisting his chest. Deacon replayed their last conversation in his mind, Luna's tentative smile as she described her dreams of attending college, her promise to make both him and Finn proud no matter where life took her. Now all of those plans lay shattered on the floor of a silent hospital room, buried beneath a cold sheet that bore no promise of resurrection. Finn himself, who had once wielded medical knowledge like a shield against illness and despair, now sat huddled in a corner of the emergency waiting area, his white coat discarded on a plastic chair as though it, too, had no place here. He rocked back and forth in slow, agonizing rhythm, eyes red-rimmed and vacant, mouthing silent pleas for forgiveness. "I'm so sorry, Luna. I promised you I would save you." Each futile thought lashed him with fresh regret, the memory of her fragile hand slipping from his own clinging to his soul like a scorching brand. In the sterile brightness of the corridor, colleagues averted their gazes, unable to reconcile the healer they admired with the broken man crumpled on the tile floor. As news of Luna's death spread beyond the hospital walls, the citizens of Port Charles fell into collective mourning. In Kelly's diner, regulars sat in stunned silence over steaming cups of coffee. The front page of every newspaper carried her image, a radiant young woman whose life now existed only in black and white photographs and tearful recollections. At Crimson Magazine, editors debated whether to cancel the upcoming cover story entirely, the glamour of celebrity gossip feeling obscene in the face of such raw human tragedy. In the Spencer mansion, echoes of Luna's laughter haunted otherwise empty corridors, the corridors that had once sheltered her joy and promise. And in the grand boardroom at General Hospital, Dr. Monica Quartermain called for an impromptu staff meeting, her usually composed voice wavering as she implored her team to honor Luna's memory by redoubling their commitment to saving lives. Yet beneath this communal sorrow, a darker question began to sink its teeth into the hearts of those who knew Luna best. Was her death a freak medical tragedy or something more sinister, something that demanded reckoning? Whispers circulated about the possibility of negligence, of tampered supplies, of a needle touched by the wrong hand, and eyes turned with increasing suspicion toward those who had been nearest to her final moments. Even Finn found himself glancing sideways at every nurse and doctor who passed his isolation cubicle, searching for signs of guilt or deceit. Sheila, too, could not escape the gnawing fear that her own efforts at redemption, and perhaps someone else's hidden agendas, had placed Luna directly in harm's way. As the sun sank below the horizon, painting Port Charles in shades of crimson and sorrow, a hastily arranged memorial service convened in the chapel at GH. Candles flickered in trembling hands, and each mourner whispered a prayer or a farewell as Luna's tiny casket was carried down the aisle by stoic pallbearers. Finn, clad in somber black, placed a single white rose atop the polished wood, his knees buckling under the weight of all he had failed to prevent. Sheila and Deacon stood side by side, their hands brushing as they fought to maintain composure. Neither spoke, for words felt inadequate, but their eyes conveyed a shared vow that Luna's life, though cruelly cut short, would not be forgotten. In that chapel, grief became a tangible thing, binding friend to friend, rival to rival, each person confronting the unanswerable question of how to move forward when a life so vivid and full had been extinguished with such suddenness. Yet as tears fell and hymns were sung, a steely resolve took root beneath the sorrow. Someone somewhere had to bear responsibility for this calamity, and Port Charles, driven by love, loyalty, and the inexorable pursuit of justice, would stop at nothing to uncover the truth. And so, beneath the morning sky and beside the unopened casket, the gathered community vowed that Luna's light, though dimmed by death, would guide their quest for answers, their pledge to protect one another, and their collective determination to ensure that no other family would endure the hollow anguish that now defined their every waking moment.